uh, introductions come with the disclaimer, and apparently. And then to top that off, what is being expressed is neither a belief system or a non-belief system. It is not spirituality, but it's also not atheism. It is not philosophy. It is not nihilism. It's not monism. So what is being suggested is just beyond comprehension. Um, in the absence of thought, though, what is being expressed is undeniably understood, not by anyone, just because of the simplicity of this. So apparently what is being illuminated is the obviousness, like the air that surrounds you, always there but barely unnoticeable. In this deep stillness, in this directness, in this obviousness, there is this seeming pulsating radiance that dances in and out. um, and that's the illusion of this and that, the illusion of separation, of good or bad, subject, object, you and I, real or unreal, seemingly like an animated action figure character that seems to be out of sync with inaction. Because what's happening here is not action, it's the inaction, it's the serenity, it's the peacefulness, it's the obviousness of what already is, that there's nothing to figure out, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to correct, although trying to figure out or trying to do something might occur. And there's nothing wrong or right about that. There's this seeming opposition, like a separation, like a flickering light that goes in and out, like a feeling that comes in and out, like that sensation that comes in and out. But what is noticed is the movement, and what is unnoticed is the stillness, obviously. Like no one will notice the abundance of air, like this air, but the moment that there's a lack of it, there's a gasping for air. But what's being talked about is not like air. It does not come in and out. It's not felt. It's not a sensation. It's not a feeling. It's never noticed. It is what already is. What is obviously always is. That does not need anything at all. So this can be called the permanence, the permanent emptiness, this unknowable stillness. And seemingly what seems to happen is they're trying to figure out, how do I get this stillness? How do I find out this emptiness? How do I get there? Like a flickering light that's coming in and out, what's flickering in and out is not permanent. It's a temporary. It's like a feeling, a sensation. I've been doing lots of one-on-one after work, and there's seemingly a lot of kind of like coming in and out, like a meaning or being, seemingly coming in and out of synchronicity. Although there's no synchronicity, it's just what is. So this can never be experienced, this infiniteness, this thisness, this obviousness, this clarity. This is always infinitely present. This is always infinitely still. But no one knows that, because a knowing is a movement and stillness is a non-movement. It's not an opposite, but it cannot be comprehended. Just like the experience of the apparent you or the me that comes in and out. I am here, I am not there, I'm a me, I am not a me. It's just a thought. So thoughts come in and out like a flickering light. But what's flickering in and out is like a faulty light bulb thinking it's electricity. So you can say that this is the infinite electricity. It doesn't have a source before you go there. It doesn't have a source, because the idea of a source, the idea of a self, is theism. This is not a disbelief in that as well. What is just what is. It is not true, but it's also not bullshit. It is real, but it's also not real. So this permanence, this wowness that is ever present is already here, but not for you. Because there is no you that will figure it out. So this is not about studying it, inquiring about it, correcting, going inwards, going external, focusing on subject and object, because that is also just an action of an action figure, of an animated fictional action figure that's trying to find liberation through stillness. But stillness is already what is. It's like trying to catch the air with a butterfly net. It always is. You don't need to capture it. It's already, whoa, it's always here. So seemingly, what is being expressed is, there seems to be apparently an uncomplicated, fundamental apparent shift in apparent perception that all that there is this. So everything is this already. This is the permanence, and this is everything. This is the reality, but not for anyone, because there's no reality for anyone. So we can't even call it that. This is the unreal, real reality. But that seems really confusing. Let's scrap that. It can't be figured out. Speakers are like DJs trying to come up with the perfect track, but everybody's already dancing. There's nothing that can be said that will make you dance to the beat of stillness, because stillness is already here. It's already present. It doesn't need to be recognized. Stillness is not an illusion, but seemingly appears in all of the illusion. Silence appears in every sound. Silence appears in every thought. So what if what is moving, like the thoughts, the you, the me, the seeking, the understanding, the misunderstanding, the grasping, the inquiring, the finding, is all the flicker? So there seems to be a focusing on what's flickering and trying to find stillness in it. But what's looking is also flickering. And there's no one behind, and there's no one beyond. So what is already is beyond and behind is just all emptiness already. In this obviousness, in this seemingly wild, this is wild. This is like anarchy. And in trying to tame anarchy and wildness is good luck. Good luck. It just creates suffering. It creates this, oh, I have to be, I've had a really, really long day, and there's a lot of people calling back and forth. And this experience, I'm like, I wish I was still. But while that's being said, there's already this stillness, that where that chaos and anarchy and wildness is seemingly appearing from. It's already stillness. Kind of like the air, it's already there. So when someone tries to, try not to breathe to find the air, it's going to gasp for air. It's always there. It doesn't need any techniques. It doesn't need any knowing. It doesn't need any figuring out, because what is not to be figured out. Again, if there is an absence, even a temporal absence of the ideas, the thoughts, the seeming feeling of I'm there or not there, that instance that there's just this perfection before all the thoughts, before all of the ideas, before all of these feelings seemingly come on, it's just this. It's simply this. It's already unknowable. It appears and disappears for the apparent seeker, but there's no seeker really. There's no flickering light. The flickering light is just an illusion. The you that comes in and out is an illusion. The seeking energy, the seeking in and out is an illusion, because there's no seeker. Because the seeker is just basically this coming in and out. What is being longed for is already this. And what this is the impermanence. This is the eternal stillness that does not need to be recognized to be figured out. This wondrous emptiness that seems to appear forever. It does not need to be focused on. It does not need anything at all. And that's what is being expressed when this unconditional liberation, this freedom that already is. It's freedom in everything. It's freedom in the shitty. It's freedom in the shifts. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just had a shift. Sometimes it's shitty, but that's the same. So it does not need a narrative. It does not need a story, although it may appear in a story. So this brilliant, radiant stillness that is being longed for, when there are no thoughts, is already this. Even when there are thoughts, it's already this. Even when there's questions, it's already this. Even when you think that you've found the answer, it's already this. So no matter what it is, it always is. It's always what is. And despite all of any wealth of knowledge of radical non-duality, spirituality, you cannot force this. It's not like, you've listened to hundreds of hours of non-duality that you finally got this. In fact, the very knowing of what this is what obscures it. The trying to think that I'm almost there is what misses it. Because this is not in the movement. This is not about how far I have to go or how far I've come. Because there's no you. It's just a flicker. It's just a play of light. It's an illusion. It's like waiting for that movie to end when the answer is not in the movie. It's not in the end credits. It's not even at the bonus clip at the end. When some of these movies that you're going to find the next chapter, because there's no next chapter. There's no prior chapter. There's no chapters at all. So there's this seeming time that passes on. There's this seeming time but there's really no time passing. There's a thought of a time passing. There's a thought that I have far to go. There's a thought that I got here. There's a thought that I'm not here. But all of those thoughts are all unreal. Because even the very thought that this is real is just another thought. The thought that I am, the moment that the I starts, the moment that the I begins, there is a separation. That's kind of like in like the letter I, there's just this wholeness and there's this I that appears and it creates this separation or perception that there's an I, there's a witness, there's an observer. But in the absence of an observer, there's no belief system. In the absence of words, what are beliefs? Because belief is just a word. So what's being expressed here is not found in words. It's not a belief system or not a belief system. It's not about understanding or getting it. It's not about figuring it out. It's not being right or wrong. It already is. So what's the point of talking about this? Really nothing. There's no point in talking about this, but what is already obvious. So this is an automatic appearance of something that is trying to speak passionately that this is already, that there's nothing needed. And what's being illuminated, it's already complete. And if you have any questions, oh shoot, sorry, I'm going too long on the intro there. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Question. Ooh, and is it okay not to talk about it? It's funny when there's questions about controversy, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. I don't really have any answers for that. It's just to drum up. This is the question basically is, what do you think about a certain, I'm not even going to mention, it's not worth mentioning. What is already. It's already. So there's nothing that needs to be added or deducted from that. When there's clarity, nothing really matters. Even when you think it matters, it doesn't really matter. But if you want to change that question, please go ahead. When it's shit all the time, it feels like being half sick. It doesn't really need a story. It just feels like shit most of the time to be. It depends on what you mean by shit all the time. If you want to elaborate on that one, then we can go. When it's shit all the time, it feels like being half sick. It doesn't really need a story. It just feels like shit most of the time to be. There's really no one that is all the time. So when it's a perception, when it's a feeling, it's not really all the time. That's just a thought. There's no such thing that is a thought that's permanent. It's just what is. Ashley. Hey, Ashley. Or maybe not. If you want to add to that, Max, please go ahead. Okay, good. I got a thumbs up. Oh, you're mute today. No worries. No worries. No worries. How do you balance work and speaking? I don't really, I'm saying there's just a love for this. There is this passion in doing this, speaking about what is already obvious. Although the passion does not come from anything or any purpose or any reason at all, there's just this automaticness. It's like the sun rising. It rises for no reason. This talks for no reason at all. There's this seeming love for this, speaking of what is being illuminated, that there's nothing needed. There's so much peace in sharing that. There's so much unconditionality in expressing, radical honesty, that it already is. And there's also a love for talking on a one-on-one, and just it's this is ridiculous talk, this is an absurd talk, that there's no one here. This is also a silly talk, that there's no one there. So when this meeting seems to appear, when this meeting, there's this talk about the obviousness of it all. Although for no reason, there's really no audience for this, because the audience that is seeking would not want to hear this, that it's already done, it's already complete, it's already peace. The seeking energy wants to seemingly find contradictions, wants to seemingly find this or that, or wants to arrive at something. So when it's being expressed here that there's no arrival, because there's no destination, there's no beginning, so there's no end. So it defeats the purpose of that seeking, because seeking is trying to find something. So what's being expressed here is the obvious, that there's nothing to find. It is already. It's already done. It's already complete. And that seems to be what's hysterical sometimes, is that the absurdity is because there's really no need to talk about that this is already, because it's already seen. Not probably felt, not seen by anyone, but it's already, the obviousness is already complete. It's already whole. Are you planning to do this weekly talks? Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. There was a point that going back into work, that there was a possibility I was not going to be able to do it, but there's just so much love for this. So much, there's no one choosing to do any of this, right? I think I told someone that I'd rather speak for the love of it than speak to make money from it. So there's this sustainability now that I can support my mom and to be able to speak on a weekly basis. Thank you, though. Leah, hi. How are you doing?
Hi, Emerson.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you? So
I'm
good to see
good.
you.
Good to see
Yeah, I
you.
wanted I wanted to thank you because you've been like a rock and a pillar for me through this. And I've had like, I'm the queen of glimpses, and I'm always like texting
Yes.
you, oh my God, what's happening? Everything just fell off. There's nobody here. What the heck? You're probably over there like laughing at me. But yeah, listening to you in this message is just so relaxing to me because I feel like there's the glimpses are seen through and it's
Yeah.
just this at this
Yeah.
point, like it's very clear it's just this. So now it's just listening to you is like listening to like an opera for me. It's just like, oh.
Oh, I remember those apparent times when it was like, it was madness, right? Because there was this going back and forth, going back and forth. And seemingly,
Yeah,
and this is just a story, right? When it all seemingly settles and the music, it's just music. It's just silence and music because there's nothing to
yeah,
figure out. It's like it's
yeah,
really heard and it's unheard at the same time. That
yeah.
the flickering, inquiring, wanting to know is almost gonna like retired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so hard with like glimpse after glimpse, and I would just be driving down the road, and it was just like, oh my gosh, everything's coming at me. There's no people. What's happening? Like it was just really periods of confusion. So bizarre, but now it's just kind of seen as part of the dream of what's happening, and
Yeah.
there's more of a relaxation into okay, nothing is that material that we're perceiving. So it's just kind of like things are just popping up and arising, and it's just simply, it's incredible. Like can't even say what it is, but
Yeah. It's so relaxing just to say that I don't know what this is. There's no one here that's right. There's no one here that's wrong. This
yeah,
is just this, there's just this. It's almost like this completion that's already been completed. Talking
yeah,
about there's no next
yeah.
chapter, there's no prior, there's no whatever. It's just this.
Just this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it took a while for that to click because it would be like, oh, but wait a minute. This glimpse showed me that this was that. And like it was putting the pieces of the puzzle. And then spirituality said this. And so maybe I better look here. And then,
Yeah.
I kept listening repeatedly, like, it's just this, it's just this. And then finally it was like, oh, it's
Yeah.
really just this.
Yeah, it's like, damn it, it's just this.
Damn.
It's
What
just
the heck?
this. What the hell?
I know. Why couldn't I be on like a spaceship or a flying unicorn or something? I don't know.
What's really fantastical about even it's just this, right? It's almost like,
Yeah.
what, this is a dream. There's
Hmm.
this there's this gravity, there's this multiple, billions of colors, there's this air and everything. um but you don't question that reality, don't you, right? It's the same
Right.
thing as when you're dreaming at night, you're flying
Yeah.
out with the unicorn with the magic wand, you know what I'm saying? You will never question that reality. So this
Right.
reality is really questionable if you really really get down to it, right? Again,
Oh,
if you
totally.
if you if
Yeah.
you we put on, like if we go scientific, all of a sudden the scientists will be baffled. They're like, well, I don't we can't really figure this out, and
No.
so, and it's funny, right? Here are some apparent characters that are supposed to figure things out, right? And here is the character thinking that it can figure it out. And then it
Right.
goes to if I can figure it out, there's someone out there that can figure this out. So it listens to various speakers and teachers.
Yes.
You, you know that
Yeah.
that you know what you texted me? Three more people texted the same thing about the apparent.
No
I'm not gonna
freaking way,
mention.
Emerson.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Because
Well, I'm glad
it's
I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm glad there's,
yeah,
other people because it's like and this is just stories and stuff, but communicating with people, I just kind of like, whatever,
yeah.
whatever people believe, they believe, but it's nice to know that other people are,
Because what
seeing this.
seems to happen is when a character is teaching or speaking about this and they're bent on being right. They're bent
Yeah.
on, offering something, and it's just a position now. So all that they have is a
Yeah.
position. So when someone questions that position, they can be very reactive.
Yes.
It can be very reactive, right? And and
Yeah, and that's what I like about you is you're so chill, you're not reactive. Like I knew like I was questioning a lot of things in different teachers and stuff, but I just kept coming back to you over and over again. And it just felt so clear and consistent like okay, this feels it's a gravitational pull to this message. It just feels realer than real.
it's like
Yeah.
air. It's just air. It's just really simple,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Yeah.
it does not need to, perfume the air, right?
Mhm.
It's already air. It's already clear. It's already um free.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels so free.
Yeah.
All that spirituality was so constricting trying to achieve, and like this is just like, oh, I can breathe finally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost like you got out of the dungeon of that suffocation of belief and knowledge and all that kind of stuff. And it's
Yeah.
just I was talking to another character that we did a one-on-one with. Actually, I just
Yeah.
released it. I just released a video, and he was just really stuck in that, we were like twinsies, you know what I'm saying? Because he had a lot of that spiritual hats, and that
Yeah.
superiority, and there's always
Yeah.
this false sense of enlightenment. There's this false sense of
Yeah.
enlightenment, right? So
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
someone has this false sense of enlightenment, then there is hierarchy all of a sudden. Then maybe you are
Mhm.
not quite there yet. Maybe you need to figure this out. Maybe you need to do more practice. Maybe you need to whatever, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so the character feels inferior, and
Yeah.
because there's this
Yeah.
superior kind of like person that has this apparent knowledge, apparent. I'm proud to proclaim that I know nothing, and there's nothing. And that's so freeing, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no
Yeah.
position. And I know that you felt
Yeah.
that too, like, there's this funny, because we're not going to mention, but there was this obstacle, you know what I'm saying? So when
Yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
Leah deciding, or the influences of apparent others, there was just
Yeah.
this freedom, right? There was just this, like,
Yeah.
there's nothing right or wrong about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
In
Like
a
all of that.
spiritual lens, that would have been so dramatic. Either
Yeah,
or.
and I lost a lot of spiritual friends, but then I'm like, wow, they're so judgy for being spiritual, and this is just so open and free to be whatever. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, but you have such a persistent illusion here, where you have like millions of these characters that are like, read this, buy this, do this, say this
Yeah.
mantra, and it's so easy to get caught into this.
Yeah.
Get sucked in. So like I
Yeah.
understand how characters are involved, but once you see past it, it's just like, wow, how did that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? And it's funny though, when you see past it, it's also innocence at play. So there's not even
Yeah.
a blame, you know what I'm saying? Or kind of like, you simply just,
Yeah.
just there's an open air, saying, why do you want to go to the dungeon?
No more dungeon.
No more dungeon.
Done with
Unless you're
it.
into it, you know what I'm saying?
Oh boy. That's a whole nother conversation
That's the
now.
whole conversation. That's what
Anyways,
I
thank
mean. You
you.
know what? This
Yeah,
conversation does not have to even sound spiritual or non-duality,
right.
because it's
Yeah,
just what is.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever comes out. It's like not even saying these words. Who knows what they mean? So,
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
but thank you so much,
Thank
Emerson.
you.
Appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Leah. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Oh, there's a question here. Sorry. Hi, Emerson. I can't imagine anyone getting mad at you or what you say. You seem so relaxed. Oh, you'll be surprised. When there is a character, you know what I'm saying? Although there are no others in the story, when there's a character that gets completely seemingly what's that word, triggered by what's being said, because they're holding a position, they're holding a belief system, and that belief system is their identity. So it's almost it's where the falseness of that, because that position is false, and what's behind it is also false. So they make it true, but there's no such things as false or true. It's just what is. So when there's just this blunt speaking about, you know, spirituality and apparent non-duality, when there's a requirement to do, or, you know, a requirement to correct or purify or anything like that, it's just being said as it is. And I have been speaking about this, you know, from the apparently from the moment that I started speaking. Is just this almost like, it's kind of funny because I talked about this more than a year ago in the beginning of my talks. It was my first event, called the circus, and it's almost kind of like a prophecy. You know, there's a lot of characters that get stuck, and there's nothing wrong again about that, getting stuck on belief system, getting stuck on the opinions of others, that there seems to be um a pulling in and out, like a pull, you know, like a push and pull, so to speak, and that causes this entrapment. Question here. Oh, that's actually really, I'm listening to Leah's walking, and it sounds really nice. I'm not going to mute it. Oh, sure. Question here. How can this, no worries. I like it. I like it. How can this be it when it's not? Or how can it be both? Don't say unconditional love. I was not going to say unconditional love, because there's no knower. There's no one that knows this to be or not to be. There's no one that says that this is it or this can be. There's not even a both, really, you know, but it's just being expressed as just, it's everything. So since there is no one that basically has, you know, gotten it or not gotten it, or, you know, notices that this is it or this is not it. So you can also say that it's just simultaneously whatever it is. Or the best explanation is it's not even that. Any thought that anyone has is just another thought about what is. So for example, when somebody says that this is it or this is not it, it's just thoughts. It's trying to, it's so difficult, but it's so simple. It's difficult to express in precise words, because words are exactly what that is precise, because what's being expressed is not precise. It cannot be caught up in an idea. It cannot be caught up in imagination. Everything that is, you know, spoken, it doesn't matter if somebody has found the greatest scripture, or, you know, the clearest character speaker. It's all made up. And what's being expressed cannot be made up, because it's unconditional love. I'm just joking. But if you back to the shit, take away all the time, this is still shit. It's neutral or perfect, but colored in shit. Colored. That's just how it feels. So when it feels, you know, shitty, there is a noticing, kind of like when there's no air, there's a grasping for air. Where's the air? But when there is sleeping, you know, there's air, no one really notices the lack of it. So for example, when you're sleeping at night or when you're not thinking, there's no shit. Shit only happens when there are thoughts. Shit only happen when there's a noticing of shit. When no one notices the shit, there's no such thing as shit. I like the naughtiness of saying shit multiple times. I mean, shift. I'm not sure if you guys heard it. Shift. So shift seemingly happens and shit also happens, but they're not permanent. So the thought that this is still shit is just a thought. So in the neutrality, as you mentioned, or the just the absence of this and that, if you even if you delete the word shit or shift, or if all words are deleted, this is just it. This is already clarity. This is not muddy at all. The words just muddies what is this. this without a separation, this without an opposite, simply this, simply not two. There's no separate from your skin to the air, to the screen, to the car, to the plant, to the thoughts, to the feeling. It's all whole. So there's no distances whatsoever. So what seems to be perceived, for example, if it seems not preferable, is just what is. That's also it. It's also the shit. It does not need to be changed, because what seems to be just an appearance always changes. But the seeming idea that I have, I have to change this or something it's like a broken record. When there's a groove, I don't know if you guys have ever played vinyl, what I'm saying, when there is a skipping part, no one notices the rest of the song, but everyone notices the scratching or the skipping sound when it gets into that point when there is a scratch. Oh, you're welcome. Is there a breakout room, and will Zabby and Casey and Ari? I'm not sure if I think Casey's here. I think Sabby's here. I'm not sure if Eri's here or oh, Kelsey's here. Kelsey's here. Um, it's up to them. You know what I'm saying? It's up to them. Susie's here too. Everyone's here. Becca's here. Everyone's here. Ashley's here. Wow. Wow. Do you ever get stressed? Um, there's no one that gets stressed. Stress happens, but in all honesty, I there's really no stress here. I wish I could say that there was stress, because that's also what is. That's also, so there's nothing that is not it. But I just have to be honest. Yeah, no, not really. Um, a funny thing though is, because I've been asked this question many times, if I get angry. For quite a while I did not, but when a couple of months ago I did, and it was quite fascinating. There was just this kind of like this fuely charge, there's this ringing thing, and someone was basically arguing with my dad, and I stepped in, and I was just this it was euphoric. And then I kind of like came back smiling, and I told my dad that I got angry. But anger happens. It's not, it's just what is, right? It's not about losing, it's not about changing. It's just what is. It's just seeing that everything seems to appear and also disappear simultaneously. And what is really is just this permanence of stillness, of emptiness. And you can't even say it that way. It's just words, right? It's this wordless that cannot be experienced. It's this peace that is so it's just this is peace. And no matter how much chaos and how much anarchy there is, because this is also anarchy and wildness and chaos, it's also peace. So it doesn't see, this separateness of peace and chaos. It sees it as it is. Really, if you really look at it, the words that really it's just labels. And if it's seen that this wondrous, thing that seems to be sought for is already appearing in everything, then the unnameable appears in peace. The unnameable appears in chaos. The unnameable appears in shit. The unnameable appears in shifts. It's always what is. So there's no more character that's trying to hold on to the peace and trying to avoid the chaos. When this chaos seems to erupt, or rage or anger, that's also what is. It's peace as a different name, as a different label. It's peace as another word. But simply there are no words because words are just an apparition. It's just an appearance. If you look for words, you'll only end up with more words. And if you look at a dictionary, it will just be an endless search for words. But what's behind the words? What is behind the sounds in the phonetics and everything in the sound of these words is silence. So these are all silence. This is silence speaking. And that's silence hearing. There's just this seeming static of sounds like, love, fear, all of that kind of stuff. But what is being expressed is the silence that is this is the silence that is there, because there's no here and there. This is just all silence. I was someone said, I missed this. I'm like, I was not gone for a long time. Come on. I did a last Friday. Yeah. And I'm going to do a 2-day event. But thank you. I can't quit you because there's no you to quit. I really like what you said about paradise last week. Can you repeat that? Um, yeah, sure, sure. It's just basically mythology, right? There's this mythology about paradise being lost, and then there's this idea of separation, and then there's this idea of I have to seek for paradise. It's the same, basically. The words that are seemingly kind of like elusive are like become like carrots. If I get enlightened, I will see paradise. If I um, become good, then I'll be welcomed in heaven. It's always what is in the future or something that is imagined or dreamed about. So what's being expressed is when there's an unframing of paradise, when there's a dissolution, when there's a breaking down of the story of why paradise seems to be lost. And if you really look at it, there was this paradise, and this is just going to story. There's this paradise. The moment that an authority appears, the moment that there is a judge or a witness of paradise that seems to appear, then there was this casting out or don't do this, don't do that, a correction. It's almost like a telltale, like, kind of like a warning of seeking, right? Because there's this innocence. The moment that someone comes in and basically says that, oh, you ate that apple or something, the tree of knowledge and everything, then you're casted out. But if you delete, what I'm saying, in the story, if it's seen that what is really imaginary or what was the cause of separation is the belief in an authority figure, the belief in God, consciousness, awareness, and there was a belief that that they were no longer in paradise. Again, this is just a story. So that's what seemingly here is. That's when the veil, there's no veil. When I'm just saying in the story, when the veil is seemingly lifted, paradise is looking at paradise. And all of that veiled of separation, that veil of authority, that veil of awareness, that veil of consciousness or source or the self is just a veil. It what seems to create this confusion or this contradiction of this or that, or pure or absolute or any positions. So when there is a dropping away of awareness or consciousness, or the idea um, or any ideas about an attainment, any ideas of some special place that you have to go inward, some idea of an authority figure, or a uniting, or like a reunification or unity of something that is impossible. So all of these ideas are like virus in paradise. It creates the blindness. So when that is seemingly gone, when there's the lifting, although there's nothing lifted because there's nothing at all, it's just basically seeing that this is paradise, because paradise is looking at paradise. There's no separation anymore. There's no ideas about paradise. There's no contradiction. There's no more gatekeeper in paradise. There's no gates in heaven. It's just really unframing it. Yeah, I had this awesome conversation with a couple of characters that were coming from religion and theology and that kind of stuff, and we were just talking, and it was just this wealth of stuff that came out about what is what is very tragic is that the moment that there is a creator or a source, then there's a division, then there's a prior, and there's an after. So when there's this idea that there was a prior innocence, then there's an after innocence trying to get back into that innocence. But what if this is already innocence? This is already paradise. This is already it. Just the ideas of seemingly kind of like having an authority figure or being aware of being, of an authority or anything at all that creates any kind of alteration, that creates any kind of shame. If you want to go into that paradise talk, right? There's a shame that I'm not pure. There's a shame that I feel separate. There's a shame that I have sinned. There's a shame that I'm not going inwards. Then that creates this confusion. This creates this almost this delusion or this hallucination that there's something that's needed, something that needs to happen, something that needs to be corrected, something that needs to be united. So when that illness, that confusion seems to vanish, there's this clearing away that, okay, you know what? This is it. Question here. Hi, Emerson. I had my first and really bad case of COVID this week. It's still ongoing. It was debilitating and struck while I had to travel as well. Oh no. The only thing that seemed obvious was how miserable I was. The body in pain, the mind feeling hopeless, the desire to disappear, to get freedom from the suffering. How does this relate to the obviousness you speak of? Thanks. So that pain, that feeling of hopelessness, even the desire to disappear is it. So without the comparison of this should be better or whatever, the pain is it. That's the emptiness, or that's the unknowable infiniteness appearing as pain, appearing as this location. This is the boundless appearing as a located pain, miserable in the body and everything. That's also it. This character is does have a really low tolerance in pain. And I've shared this story many times. So one time I caught my fingers in a garage door, and then my fingers turned blue and black right away. And there was this throbbing pain. It was just so pronounced. This apparent, undoing does not undo the pain. It actually does the opposite. It actually, when there's pain, it's just pain. When it's pain, it's real pain. It's full on pain. So I was sitting there. I'm like, wow, there's the thought that came that I might have to lose my finger. And then when the thought was just seen as just empty, it's just a story, because there's no more narrative that this will get worse or whatever. It's just a thought. It's just as obvious as air, right? It's just an appearance. So when there's this pain that was just seen for what it was actually quite fascinating. I'm not trying to say that for you, Ben, it will be like this. The throbbing pain actually was just very euphoric because all the endorphins were pumping, and I started giggling. I'm like, this is what the S&M people like pain, because it's just very intense. But when I did get sick, you know what I'm saying? It was just fascinating, because there's going to be what seems to get the pain worse into suffering threshold, is when the pain becomes a story, when it becomes kind of like, oh, why am I stuck? Oh, I don't, I'm so miserable. There's so much body pain and everything. It's just what is. And the narrative is still going to come up, but when it's seen that that narrative is also emptiness, just emptiness, just empty words. It's the infinite expressing itself in thoughts about how shitty this is. When it's just this, when it's seen that everything is the same, that appears in different kind of like feelings. When it's seen that there is no cause and effect, when it's seen that this is just it, that's also it. It's almost kind of like, oh wow, it's appearing as this COVID right now. Sorry to be laughing. Sorry to be laughing. I'm laughing because this is really absurd to say for someone that is in pain. But feel free to call me and if you want to talk more about this. But what's being expressed is, it is what it is. There's this confusion or this belief that when there's a dropping away of someone that was never there, that there's just this it's almost like what do you call it, immune to pain. There's no immunity to pain, but there's no one suffering. The pain is going to be intense, the bodily sensation is going to be as is, but there's no one claiming it anymore. It's just as it is. There's a question here. I feel like lately I'm listening to this message and nothing is being heard. None of the words are being understood or actually being listened to, no matter how many times I try to put these videos on. WTF? Yes. It's not about hearing these words. It's not about trying to figure out. It's just what is. So even if it's trying to be heard, trying to be figured out, when it's seen that that's not even heard, none of the words make any, it doesn't make any sense. This is just, for lack of a better term, this is just boundless energy. This is like air. And when it's seen like air, you can't see air, then it's seen. Hello, Emerson. Can you talk about the drop of all beliefs and after the falling of a person? How is it? Thank you. Yes, of course. So what seemingly, this is this is just a story. This was a professional seeker. So this was an expert level seeker. Not only did that was seeking, it became a dealer for seekers. But what I was dealing with, what I was basically selling, was a belief system. So I became a dealer of belief system. But when you are also a seeker, you're also, you use your own supply, which makes a bad dealer. So what is being held on to by a seeker or a narrator of a story is a belief system. It's the belief that that there is a next, it's just a belief in words, really. It's a belief in ideas, it's a belief in thoughts, it's a belief in the phantom, it's a belief in ghosts, it's a belief in the imagination and the unimaginable. So when that belief system or the non-belief system, when the root of that belief system is this singular belief that I am separate, meaning that I, that has this belief system, is confused that I am the holder or the keeper of belief system, when the keeper or the holder, the believer, is just as empty as air, when it vanishes in and out, when it goes flickering back and forth, when it seems to appear and disappear simultaneously, then it's caught up. You're like, the believer of all belief system is just a belief. Belief is just a word that's made up. And belief is a belief in either this or that. But all of this is just really a flimsy transparently nothing, then the believer sees what it is as a belief. So all of the belief system of the believer, meaning the me, that felt sense of a believer, that even the felt sense of reality is just a belief system, then it's seen that it's a dream. It's kind of like what I was saying, when someone is dreaming at night and they believe, not even, that's not even a word. It's never just questioned. Reality is never questioned. There's a point of view, for example, that in the dreams, for example, when you're dreaming at night, you never even see yourself in the dream. It's very rare. There is this point of view. So when that point of view is the dream itself, meaning it's not real, but it feels real like a dream, then that point of view, that holder, that perceiver, that believer is empty, then it cannot grasp any belief system anymore. All of its imaginary friends, all of its imaginary, position crumbles down. It all falls apart. There's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to know, because all of that is just held on by a belief system. But the belief system is like a sand castle that's made up by a child. So when it gets washed down, what you thought was a castle, a tower of belief system, is seen as just grains of sand that you can't hold on to. It's really nothing. Thank you. Um, and it's also seen that there was no person that fell or no person that dropped, because that's just another belief system. So everything that will come out seemingly from a character seems to come from a belief system, but belief is just a thought. And then when you keep on going back to thought, to belief, thought, you'll always end up with nothing. And in the absence of words, in the speechlessness of it all, then everything is seemingly revealed, but not for anyone, because anyone or another is just a belief. You and I are just a belief. Any words that will come out just supports a belief system. So when it's seen that the words, the belief, the believer, there's just this, it's not there, like in a deep sleep. There's just this staggering absence and a seeming kind of like in a flooding of clarity, and a wow, nothing is happening. Wow, this is it. Wow, this is everything in this appearance. And this is not even it. It's so confusing to express it in words, but because it tries to believe what is being said here, or this beliefs, so this is how tricky it is, right? It's either when a character is listening to this character, either believes it or does not believe it. Both don't matter. This is not about a belief or not about or disbelief. It does not need to be believed or disbelieved to see what is being expressed. There's not even a seer. There's not even a feeling or an experiencer. It's just this. Does not require any systems at all. Does not require theology, spirituality. Does not even require non-duality. It's just this. It's so clear. There's a question here. Was it an experience of dying before the shift in identity? If so, how did it feel that me died? Um, there was just basically it's like the best way to express this is like having this vivid dream of a real character named Emerson. This really vivid dream had a history, was born in 1971. Um, all of the story about Emerson, right? So that sequential, that kind of like linear Emerson, that's backed up by a whole bunch of idea. When there is this absence, this clarity, when there are no thoughts, no ideas, when it's seemingly that all the words, all of the thoughts, all of the belief system blacked out. So what was seen previously, like a dream, like a vivid dream, like for example, in a vivid dream, you could won the lottery or, jackpot, and you put a whole bunch of golds in your pocket. Or the opposite, you could have lost everything. Someone could have died. You always wake up with nothing, meaning none of it really happened. None of it really existed. So this is not neither existence or non-existence. It's just what is. So the dream is the dream of existence, and there is this opposite of that, which is non-existence. So there's a dream of belief and a non-belief. So it's a dream of opposites. It's a dream of separation. So when there's this awakeness also is deep sleep. This life is also death. This felt sense of separation is also wholeness. The me that feels real is also not real. So it's not about a position, because everything that was held on to as a position or a thought or an idea or a perception is seen as completely meaningless, like waking up from a dream, thinking that you've won the lottery and or whatever, and then you come out empty-handed. So that empty-handed, that awakeness that seems to happen in every vivid dream is the resting position, is what always is what's never have ever changed. So this dream can be chaotic, it can be peaceful, it can be whatever seems to appear. But what always is this peacefulness, that nothing is really happening, even though it feels like absolutely devastatingly real. And it's not about feeling it or figuring it out. It's just what is. Oh, I love you too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I love you so much too. Thank you. Do you feel lucky or special for having seen this? Seeing this? No, actually, you know what? It's very anticlimactic. Because there was a belief system of something, when this apparent and happening, that it would solve everything. It doesn't solve anything. It's just this. But what seems to disappear, though, is the one that's trying to solve it. There's just this radical acceptance that, okay, you know what? Someone has to work, that kind of thing. Or someone has to take care of their mom. It's just what is. There's no kind of like lamenting over like, oh, I really, there's none of that, right? There's just this acceptance. Or even if there's some of that, there's acceptance of that too. So there's a layer and layer and layer and layer and layer of peaceful acceptance, peaceful contentment of no matter what happens. So even it gets kind of like angry, there's a peaceful contentment and acceptance that that's also what is. Because there's this is going to sound off, but there's this seeming in loveness of what is. There's this seeming acceptance of what cannot be accepted. There's ignorance in this bliss. And there's what seems to happen is just what is. And it does not see any kind of problem with it. Hi, Emerson was listening to interviews of people who escaped cults like Mormon, Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses, where it's all they've ever known and they managed to leave. But a common thread was they took mushrooms and the system was no longer holding, just fell away. It was no longer true. It really interested me. Is what's left just another state? There's no states, right? This is not about trying to go to a different state or trying to escape, because there's nothing to escape. There's clarity that nothing is needed. there's clarity that what was seemingly, was kind of like oppressive, like a belief system, kind of like, Mormon, Jehovah's Witnesses, um, it's just a story. There's no truth to it. So that heavy weight of guilt or shame, or that displaced loyalty on a belief system, that kind of like contractedness, or that anything that seems to be a false sense of liberation or longing for something, or it can be a betrayal at the same time. It could be a lot of grief in seeing, but the taking of the mushroom could basically, knock off that belief system temporarily, though. This is not to recommend or not recommend mushrooms, by the way, but seemingly, I was talking to Timothy about, having a mushroom experience, and um, it can also be just another state, but it could be what's needed when there is a seeming, heavy cult control thing. It's just to kind of like dispel. I love watching stuff about cult leaders. You know what I'm saying? It's a cautionary tale. It's wow. You know what I'm saying? It is what is, but it's very how do you say it? Disturbing. It's what is, but it's a very disturbing, right? Because there seems to be, and a lot of religion and even spirituality was like that. There seems to be a lot of control of, of the identity. So it reinforces this idea that you're separate. It reinforces this idea that there's something wrong with you, that there needs to be a correction. And the neurosis in trying to correct something, trying to do the practices, prayers, and then praying to an imaginary outer, thinking inward or outer. It's the same thing. Like, with religion, for example, there's an external outer source, like Sinu, I guess, Scientology. I'm not really sure who it is. And there's this alien. And then in if you look at, non-duality practices, there's this internal consciousness, this internal awareness. Then you have to meditate. Then you have to be aware of it. It's oppressive. It's separation. It's another delusion. Um, and it's kind of funny because, you know what, I'll probably get comments that this is nothing like religion and spirituality. They're both belief systems. This is nothing about awareness. That's another belief system. But awareness is not a belief system. That's a belief system. It's just what is. And what's being expressed here is that anything that creates this authority, you know what I'm saying, pure, absolute, any of those words, um, is a cautionary tale that, when there is an investment in that, or even, even getting stuck in the authority of thinking that, I'll just be taking mushrooms forever. That's another position. That's another delusion. So the unconditional freedom that's being expressed here is free of all of the bondages of thoughts, of minds, of words, of belief system. That's what is being expressed as freedom here, not freedom as an idea of a supreme being, not freedom as an idea of a source, a beginning, a prior. Because when there's a prior, there's an after. When there is when there's paradise, there's hell, or heaven or hell, right? So there's just this appearances of separateness. And so when, for example, when someone thinks that they have gotten out of religion and gone to spirituality, and they're doing the meditation and everything, there's still a codependency. They're longing for that peace, but the peace is already. And then usually what happens when a seeker is this, they go to another, maybe they have embodied whatever, and that's okay, that's perfectly fine, right? But when it becomes a position again, when there's something that needs to be corrected, then they rely on an internal and an external. But as long as there is a positioning, as long as there is a seeming kind of like right or wrong or this or that, then there is going to be a sufferer, because there is a preference for, there's a carrot, there is an after, there is an effect, but there's no cause and effect. So let's break the fourth wall. This is a dream. You are a dream. There's nothing that you can do in a dream because it's just a dream. There's nothing to be figured out. There's nothing to know. There's no dream of awareness. There's no dream of consciousness. There's no dream of God. That's just all dream stuff. And when there's clarity that this is all a dream, everything that you've ever thought about, everything that you will ever think about is dream stuff. And the peace and the clarity is seeing that this is just a dream, no imaginative waking up to reality or, or dropping away or something. Then what is being expressed is that this is already paradise or heaven. It doesn't have any gates. It doesn't have any guard. It doesn't have any gatekeeper. There's no one taking score. But when there's a belief system, you're back in Santa Claus mentality. You're back into thinking that there's someone that is judging you, or there's a higher you that judges you. All of that is a delusion. The peace that's being expressed here is so pronounced that it already is this. It's almost like that there is a, kind of like with cults and everything. There's cults and everything. It's a belief system that seemingly traps the idea that there is a controller. Question here. Cannot believe you. Yeah. That body vessel, whatever, is 52 years old. That is some Morpheus Matrix stuff. Oh, thank you. Thank you. 51, actually, not 52 years old. But 52 this year. Yes. Holy crow, I'll be 52 this year. This body, anyway. There's actually another character that I talked to. This character is 57 years old. You should watch the video. I sent it in a newsletter. She's 57 years old. And I was like, what? Thank you so much, Emerson. How come I want to be the state that you are in? Okay, but there's no one in this state. See, that's the thing, is you think that there is a me in this state. There is no me or you in this state. There are no states. There's no state of mind. There is no experience. Everything that you think is an experience, and you are the experience. You are the ultimate experience, and all experiences are illusion. So everything is already, when there's no you and I, when there's no state, this is it already. So waiting for the next giant wave so that you can surf. It's a fantasy. Why does it anyway seem like you had that magical click when you were DJing, and now the stories and the me just suddenly shut down for you? I know it's already complete, but why does it always seem like everyone who speaks about it, like yourself, Jim, and others, had this sudden event or something without which they would still feel stuck? If nothing is needed, then why would the stories and the me suddenly shut down randomly, like when you were DJing? Why is it so random? That's a really, really fascinating kind of like thing. It's like, so the DJing that seems to be kind of like a catalyst is not really a catalyst. It's basically an expression that there are no thoughts to figure this out. So when it's almost like a little peek into it, right? So when you're doing something that you love, although there's no you, when love is just happening, either it be DJing, cooking some meals, walking like Leah, driving like Casey, teaching like Harvey, it's just what is. When I'm picturing Harvey teaching his college students, and there's just this passion coming out. It's just what is. It doesn't need to click it. There's no magical click to that one. And there's not even trying to say that find what you love. It's just it. So when there is this love in full bloom, when there's no thoughts, when there's no ideas, no whatever, it is it already. There was no shift that happened. It is already. In the story, there seems to be a fundamental shift in the perception that there's nothing needed, meaning that the needy or the seeker, the needy seeker that longing for something is actually not there. That this is happening very automatically. This is happening without any kind of input from anyone. Um, so yeah, so that's what's being expressed here. It's just this is so random. It does not need. Listen, I practiced meditation hours and hours and hours and hours. I was I was doing all the work for maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, waiting for that single glimpse. But when there's no guard of that glimpse, because the glimpse actually is you, you're the one that flickers in and out. The idea of you anyway, there's no you. The experiencer is just flicking in and out, right? So when it's seen that that's flicking in and out and DJing is just really happening, it's just what is. It's kind of like when artists, I'm not sure if there's a couple of artists here, when they're doing art, it's just art happening. It's just what is. And it doesn't have to be, art or DJing or something. It could be just, spending time with your kids or your best friend or whatever. What time seems to, there's no time, but time seems to be invisible or not happening at all. For this character, I got thrown off because what was funny is because, I was a very wound up seeker that was listening kind of like neurotically back and forth, and then I took a break, and I was just DJing, and all of a sudden it's like, there's no one doing this. There's nothing really going on. And the idea that someone is doing this is just another thought. It's just another idea. It's just another perception. But when the perceiver, the I, the big IMAX, the experiencer, the big IMAX experience in 3D sound and all that kind of stuff, is seen as just as an appearance, as just a hologram, as a simulation with no programmer. It's like AI, but with no source. And then there's like, holy crow, everything is just automatically happening on its own. But you will never find, you will never catch that, because the you, it's like the you that you're trying to catch is the one that's automatic. The you that trying to catch is the glimpse. It's the one that flickers in and out. It's a belief system. And a belief can either just be a belief or a disbelief. So when both those are seemingly, shut off, although it was never on, it's just flickering, then it's seen that it's just, holy crow, this is autopilot happening. This is autopilot isness. This is autopilot thing by itself. And there's nothing that's needed to figure it out or understand or to even try to capture what's happening. It's like you get caught up in taking a selfie with your phone, and then when you drop the selfie, you're like, oh, I am not the camera. There's no self. There's this seemingly getting caught up in and again, there's nothing wrong or right about that. It seems to be what's happening, seemingly getting stuck in everything. It's like it's like the imaginary is so busy to be real that it keeps on creating this imaginary perception, a narrative, a running gag, so to speak, that it is real, because it cannot seem to because if you really look at what is being expressed here, is that in this automaticness, in this non-meaning, meaningless expression of this, it already is. It does not need a recorder. It does not need a camera. It does not need an interpreter. It does not need technology. This is organically free. This is already what is. And what is so glaringly obvious that the technology or the AI is trying to take pictures of it, trying to take, like, okay, that's it, I got it. No, no picture can ever capture what is. Everyone is a camera, but there are no cameras. There's no one behind the camera. It's just an appearance, an apparition, a seeming technology that does not exist. I don't know if I answered the question, but but thank you for that question. Hey, Leah.
Hey,
Hey.
yeah, I thought about something I wanted to talk to you about that I haven't asked before, but I'm an acupuncturist,
Yeah.
and um, for the longest I did Reiki and all sorts of
Yeah.
healing modalities on top of it. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on healing.
It's just
Um,
what is. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
just what is. There's nothing wrong or right about anything.
yeah,
Being an acupuncturist is the same thing as whatever there is, right? There's no one
yeah,
choosing to be an acupuncturist or not to be an acupuncture.
right.
The only difference with my story is because I was trying to teach, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Enlightenment. So there was this
Yeah,
kind of like, it felt really, really off, you know what I'm saying? When it's seen that this is already automatically happening, that there's
yeah,
nothing that needs to be taught. So
yeah,
acupuncture is just automatically happening. There's no one
yeah,
doing it, there's no one controlling, it's just what is.
right.
Yeah.
It's just so funny to me because there's so many concepts within acupuncture. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
chi deficiency, liver chi stagnation. You've got
yeah,
this going on because your mind is thinking this too much. And then you're
yeah.
creating this issue here that's going to this pathway. And it becomes so complex. And then my patients are like, well, I'm in a metal sign this year and a yin cycle. And now I'm
My
just kind of
meridian
laughing
points are
at
all this. Yeah, yeah.
it. I'm laughing at it all. And I'm like, damn.
It's like, it's like when an actor that's completely involved in their character, kind of like, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, this is a play, but there's
Yeah.
nothing that you can do because it's already written, the script.
Right, right. Just flowing with it. But it's just funny now, like all these
It is.
concepts and stuff. It's just, yeah,
It is
yeah,
funny, right? Yeah,
yeah.
I used to do my meditation. I used to do my mantras, I would play my harmonium and light incense and everything. And slowly there's nothing wrong or right about anything, you know what I'm saying? They started
Right. Yeah.
slowly falling apart. Like, I don't
Yeah.
use incense anymore.
No? No
No.
more incense?
It's just really recently, maybe about 6 months ago. I used to have a nagchampa kind of like thing, right? To feel kind of like holy and everything. I have this nice, scent now.
What's that?
I don't know. It's called shop.
A lot of those incense are really stinky
They
anyway,
are.
right?
They are.
I went to Bali once and I was walking around and they burn them everywhere, like on the floor, altars everywhere, and all you smell is like this really like deep
Yeah.
fragrance. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. And I used to do
yeah.
mantras, right? And I used to have a group that, and you know what's really great now? Singing
Mm.
duet karaoke with cheesy 90s love songs, especially
Oh,
like,
heck
I'm
yeah.
talking, is like the Celine
Yes,
Dion. It's all coming back to me now.
Celine
The
Dion.
lyrics to that.
No, you
It's all coming back to me now.
I think in one
Okay,
of the
sorry, we need
breakout
to
rooms,
start
we're going to
again.
do some karaoke,
Oh, we
definitely.
need some karaoke. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah, yeah, for
incredible. I love
sure.
it. Yeah, fun.
So the normalcy, right? The freedom of not
Yeah,
trying to be something holy or divine. And although there's nothing wrong or right about that, right? It
yeah.
already is whatever it is. It's just
Hmm.
this glaring freedom that is in karaoke, that is in,
Hmm. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be manufactured freedom of being in a
Hmm.
temple, of doing, and there's nothing wrong with it. But that's what I was doing when I was a spiritual seeker or a practitioner. I was manufacturing freedom. But what's missed is that there's freedom in everything.
Oh
in
yeah.
karaoke, in I don't know, in yeah. Oh, there's
Bring me
also
on.
freedom
Yeah.
in you know, for example, you know what, with the nagchampa, right? There was freedom, but there was this kind of like, oh, you know what, it's really stinky now. Because I don't think of it as holy. You know what I'm saying? I don't think of it as a purification. And I've read somewhere
Right.
actually that it causes a lot of, you know, discomfort in breathing because it's not
It
the
causes
best.
lung cancer.
Oh, I
Even like the mocks I use on patients, like they told me in school, don't burn this and keep the door closed and do this all day long. Be careful how many moxa sticks you burn on the patient, because there's practitioners who've gotten lung cancer from years of using this
yeah,
herb.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it seems to be that, you know, that there's a lot of just clarity. There's just a lot of normalcy. There's a lot of
Yeah.
walking, there's a lot of smiling, there's a lot of um whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be smiling. It could be kind of like, you know, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just singing
Yeah.
karaoke, you know. Suddenly,
Mhm.
seemingly, you know, that manufactured lie of spirituality fell apart. That facade, that imposter syndrome that I had as a holy being and everything was just an elaborate costume to create this superiority, this false sense of enlightenment. And
Yeah.
when that entrapment, that um, choke hold on the character, when that chains, you know, fall down, then it's just there's enjoyment in the peace of whatever seems to appear in this appearance of a dream. Yeah.
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 Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emerson.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah.
Yep.
Oh, last question here. Thank you. I noticed that I want certainty always, but what is wrong with uncertainty? What's wrong with where I am? And I can't find anything being wrong with not knowing and uncertainty. Maybe, maybe not. There's freedom in it. Beautifully said. Yeah. There was there's this freedom in uncertainty. There's this, yeah, there's this safety in uncertainty. I know that seems contradictory, right? When there is no longer holding on to um, positions, beliefs, when there's no more holding on to results. There was this, there was this slave, you know, there was this enslavement here with all of these practices, inquiring, looking within, all of that kind of stuff. When that started falling apart, there was this almost like I got out of a solitary confinement. Being in that spiritual non-duality awareness was just, and this is just a story. There's nothing wrong or right about anyone is listening that's in that. But what's being expressed here, that when it was just basically caught up in the internal appearance of what is, the imagined idea of what God is or what awareness is, the arrogance of thinking that it knows God. When all of that fell apart, there was this freedom like no other. There's this honesty that is just, finally, I can be honest. Finally, freedom. Finally, enough freedom. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I'll end it with that. There's going to be a breakout room, and thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Thank you.
next weekend is a 2-day thing. Again, I might not be able to do it in a long time, so I'll take this opportunity to do it while this character's not as busy at work. It will get busier. And there's just this excitement about that as well. So thank you so much. And hopefully Friday, Zabby and all of these, I don't know who was there. But maybe Susie wants to speak, maybe Kelsey, whoever. There's no difference from seekers and speakers. Just one word. Thank you so much, everyone. Love you all. Bye. I'll join the breakout room.